Hi everybody, Mark Michaels here, and we are here today with Mr. Kenny Platt, the 2024 NCHA Metallica Futurity Open Champion. How does that sound?
I like the sound of that.
It's kind of got a ring to
that's
it.
That's nice. That's nice.
So you've been to the finals 8 times.
Yep.
And you've never quite won it, and this year was different. What is it about this show that makes it so hard?
Well, I mean the field is how 600 some horses. Yep. Usually on an average it's that every year, and they narrow it down to 20. So that makes it so hard, and I mean all the other variables along with that. Good horse trainers, good horses, and cattle, and all the other variables, keeping a horse sound, and the 1,000,001 different things that go into it.
Yeah. Well, it's a 26-day show. I mean, it's a marathon, and this is their first show. So
yeah.
I mean, it's a learning curve for everybody.
It is.
So let's talk about the horse for a minute. Too Hot To Tagg. Let's go back to how did you acquire that horse? How did you get into your program?
Well, I just sold a 2-year-old of my own last year, and I was looking to kind of replace the one that I sold for myself, and I was looking for a Rome stud colt actually, and I'm watching the 2-year-old sale videos, and I see this horse, and Bo Warren had it, who I know Bo pretty well, and I was watching this horse, and I kept telling my wife about this horse. I was like, I'd have my phone out and be like, hey, watch this horse, and she was like, oh yeah. So anyway, I watch it and I watch it and I watch it, and finally I called Bo, and I was like, yeah, I want to know a little bit about this horse. He said he's really good, and you need to try him. And I said, well, that's fine. I don't know when we'll have time. Everybody's busy at that time, and so the day of the day that horse sold, he called me up. He said, I'm bringing this horse in here, and I want you to work him. And it was the morning. He was going to sell him in the morning, and it was pretty early in the morning. Yeah. And I was like, man, I don't want to do that. And he said, no, I want you to try this horse. So I go up there to the multi-purpose building, and I try that horse. And I liked him a lot, but he was pretty swelled up. He was pretty steady. Yeah. And anyway, I liked him, and I was going to try and bid on him if he went for what I could afford. And so I walked across the street when he was selling, and it went pretty fast, and he went pretty high, and I didn't really even get my hand in the air. And
you were looking at him as a gelding price.
Yeah, right? I was wanting to spend under a certain amount, and he went for over that, and but I really liked the horse, and so after that, Jeremy Barwick called me, and he said, I understand that you tried, Too Hot To Tagg, and would you want to train him? And I said, I would love to train this horse. I said, but he would have to be a gelding. Yeah. I was like, he is kind of already showing signs that he doesn't want to be a stud, and I really think horses pick whether they want to be a stud or not people. And I said, I would love to have the horse, but he would have to be a gelding. And he said, that's no problem. He said, you can do whatever you want to do. And I thought, awesome. And I kind of thought maybe Jeremy was going to own him or whatever, but he got Mr. Jamie Nail to buy him. And Jamie Nail called me and asked me if I'd ride the horse, and I told him the same thing. I was like, I would love to, but he'd have to be kind of a gelding and stuff like that. And he said, yeah, no problem. You take him wherever you want, do whatever you want. And that was the only conversation I had with him until I showed that horse in the first round.
So you didn't talk to him throughout the year at all?
I never met him. I met him. I marked 20 on that horse in the first round, and I was walking out of the arena, and this kind of big cowboy guy is like, hey. And I said, hey. And he goes, I'm Jamie Nail. I was like, hey, Jamie Nail, Kenny Platt. So anyway, that was the first time I met him. So, yeah.
Was he calling you ever to see how his horse was doing?
No, I told him, I said, man, I'm so glad I showed this horse for you. I said, you're a great customer. I said, you never bother me. And when he said, literally do whatever you want to do, I did. Yeah. I wore that gelding like a shirt. He went everywhere with me, and stuff like that. So. Yeah.
So when you got him home, you got him cut, and what were your first impressions getting him into the program that first 30 days? Was he kind of what you thought he was going to be?
Bo did a really good job on him, and after we cut him, and even before, I worked him a few times as a stud before. He definitely needed to be a gelding. I'm glad we did that, and I knew. I told Ella Blazek, the girl that's worked for me for 6 years. She's my assistant, and I told her one day, I was like, this is my best 2 and 3-year-old, or at that time it was before Christmas, and he's always been one that I was like, this is a really, really good horse. So
and did he stay kind of high up on that list the whole way throughout the year?
Yeah, he did. Being a gelding and stuff, I had a stud and a mare. Stud belonged to Billy Foster, Iron Rock Ranch, and then a mare belonged to Linda Holmes, and it was another hashtag. It was a hashtags mare out of Stylish Playlina, and I was actually going to show that mare until about 3 days before the Futurity, and Monty Bunton was going to show this gelding. Not because of, they were just right there, and the mare we'd had the whole time, and the gelding Bo had, which didn't mean anything, but I just felt a little bit more comfortable in the mare. She got sore about 3 days before the Futurity, and it was like that gelding, he just knew, because, at the pre-works, I only really went to 2 pre-works, actual pre-works, and I worked at some different places, but I went to Bill Riddle's pre-work in Waurika, and he was really good there. And I went to a Dawn's pre-work that Stephen Feiner puts on, and which is outstanding. And the first day I worked him on 3 cows, and the second day I only worked him on 2. And it was like he just, it's funny how horses do that. He just kind of stepped up, and I thought, well, I feel pretty comfortable on this horse. So, yeah. Yeah,
so it all kind of fell into place right there. Had you ridden many other hashtags?
Just the one that got sore, and no, I'm going to say that's about it. Yeah.
Well, obviously you're a fan now.
Yes, it's hard not to be. I haven't got a vest yet, but well, I know I'm just kidding.
I think I know somebody.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Well, let's. So you're coming off the pre-works and everything. You're feeling pretty confident. What was that work like that morning? Describe that.
Well, before the first round, he's such a cowie. He's wild and cowie, and. But you never ever feel like, I wonder if this horse is going to cut. He just, if anything, he's beating you back to a cow, which is that's what you got to have. And it just was a whole lot more of like, hey, just not yet. And he worked great that morning. He just as wild as ever, And I just kind of slowed it down and did what we do, and flagged him before I showed him, like we do all of them, and he really impressed me the first round. He just very, very responsible. Is kind of how I describe him. He just kind of takes control and does it. Yeah. And that's what you got to have.
Yeah, so. And I was going to ask you, because that first go-around, it's such a crapshoot on these 3-year-olds. Yeah. We just never know. What did you learn? What was something that you learned about him that you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, well, that he needed a lot of loping because he is wild. But, that just goes with having a horse that likes to win. You got to ride him a little more generally. And I'd say the only thing I really learned about him was just that, he just rises to the occasion, right? Yeah. And you did this forever, done this longer than I have, and just some of them they just like money, and they want to party. He just, that's what he wanted to do. So
what obviously nerves play a big part of it in that first go around, especially. Yeah. We don't know what we have until we go down there and hear that buzzer, and that's when you kind of know. But what are some of the things you do to deal with those nerves, maybe that you do a little bit different from other shows?
I don't. I do. I try to do everything the same. I'm kind of I would like to think I'm a simplistic thinker. And the thing that I do to deal with my nerves is what I kind of do all year, and that's I try to go show. And there's people that are like, I don't know how you go to all those shows and da-da-da-da. Well, the reason we go to all those shows is to be competitive. Yeah. And that's, I'd say, how I dealt with those nerves is you just got to go wear yourself out doing it to where it's like taking a breath,
Well, it becomes muscle memory.
Yeah.
And that's something that's so important in other sports, when you hear the athletes talk about it, where it just becomes where you're not thinking about each individual thing. It's just muscle memory.
Yeah. And you just got to be like taking a breath is what I always say. Like if you don't think about breathing. Yeah. And it's kind of got to be like that, and I'm not saying I don't get nervous. So let's be clear on camera here. I get nervous all the time, but like you said, muscle memory and I always have great help. Grant Setnica and Chris Johnsrud and Lloyd Cox and Clay Johnson turn me around, and that my crew really hasn't changed much, other than, Chris Johnson's been helping me probably the last 3 or 4 years, and it was TJ Good before that. And those guys, I can't say enough about, there's times I'll be like, I'll have one cow that I want to cut, and they're like, they fire off 3 or 4 and coach me through it, and they deserve a lot of credit. Yeah.
Well, it's got to be a security feeling going down there, knowing you've got the veteran crew that you have.
And they know what you do. They know how you cut, and you can mention a cow and we just all communicate. I feel like we communicate really good, and I'm lucky to have people that, for one thing, you're always lucky if you have people that want to help you. Anyhow, so
that's for sure. Yeah. Well, then the second go around, obviously comes right after the first go around there. Did you do anything different? How did he work that morning before you showed?
Yeah, I mean, really good. Just the same deal. I worked in the same pen that I had been working him in, and I didn't really work him in any different bridle or anything like that.
What do you work him in? What kind of bridle?
I worked him in a correction. I call it the accident correction, and because it's kind of got welded different anyway.
Yeah.
And then I show him in an elephant, like a solid bridle, and I worked him in pen 3, which has been the pen I was working him in, and he worked great, and I didn't really, you don't change anything. The only thing about the second round was it was just survival. Yeah. The cattle were treacherous, and I drew deep in there again on him, and I think I was third to the end nearly every time I showed him in the rounds. And, once again, like, credit to my help. Those guys, they knew some cows, and I kind of knew some, and I felt like we did a really good job of kind of optioning and just cutting sort of stuff that would let us get shown, and the score reflected. It wasn't a big score, but it was plenty,
Well, you have that 220 in the first go, which is always nice because it gives you a little bit of a cushion, right? Yeah. If something doesn't go right, it gives you a little bit of a buffer, and then all of a sudden they bring in those cows for the second go around. You're on the second day, I believe, of the second go around, so you'd seen what was going on. These cows were taking people out left, right, and center.
Yeah.
And there wasn't a lot getting scored, so it must have felt good having that little bit of security, having that bigger score from the first go around, knowing you just needed to be clean.
Absolutely, You always want that. You always want the big score in the first round, I think, and because of what you're saying, the cows can change, and lots of different things can change. However, it's still like you don't want to mess up trying not to mess up.
Right.
Like there's that element of having to go show.
Yeah.
I got to put a run together.
Yeah.
And that's, even when I do have a big score, I always try and put that run together, and to me, like, my first 2 cows weren't really good enough, and I needed to cut a third one real bad, and we did, and we didn't cut it very much time, and we didn't take too many chances, but anyway.
Well, 216.5 in that second go around, that was still the second highest score in that set.
It was hard to survive,
and so, that had to feel good getting through that. So now we take a big, deep breath after that second go around. You've got a 436. And it took a 431 to go back to the semis, so you don't have to sweat. You're sitting pretty clean through there. Now we've got 18 days off.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got a whole bunch of other crap going on down there, and there's 18 days where you got to sit and think about, okay, now what, And how does that work, or how does that play in the back of your head?
I love it personally, because I try to small futurity every year, right? We show small futurity horses, and one thing I do know about my horses is, once they've kind of been through that process before the semis, like, if I can give them 5 or 6 days off, I try to give them, I think it's like 5 to 6 days off, and even in those days off, I'll have the girls get him out and lope him around and just move him around a little bit. But my horses always come back better, and I mean, for the most part, right? Like, you sometimes you make the semis on one that's just okay, but I just try to give them that little bit of time off, and then I go back to working them just like I did before.
Yeah. So, Were you dealing with any soreness or injuries, or was it just like everything stayed pretty sound?
He's been solid as a rock, Yeah.
All right. So then the semis come around. You draw deep in the third set. What was your game plan going into that round?
Oh man, just the same as it always is. Like I feel like at that point of the Futurity or any other show, I feel like I have a lot of confidence in the way my horses are and look, and so to me, it's my job to go get a cow put in front of them real clean. So I focus on just trying to cut as clean as possible. And if a cow I like, if it runs out of there and doesn't go to the best spot, I'm going to cut the one standing there. Is what I try to do.
Right
now. Not saying that.
Cover it up if it doesn't?
Correct.
Well, so did you have a score in mind that, like, by then you'd kind of seen, obviously, some runs go through in the third set. Did you have a score in mind, or were you just trying to focus on just executing?
Yeah, execution. You got to go do your job.
Yeah.
And then the rest of it's the rest of it. But I've never been I pull up your app when it's all over, and I see what it's going to take to make it, and that's about as detailed as I get. I kind of know the type of run I want to have.
Yeah.
How's that? I mean, I think the semis, you want to go have a strong run and
Yeah.
show your horse,
Yeah.
you know, and because anymore at this level, there's no getting carried in there. And I was able to have that kind of a run. And same deal, like credit to my help. Like in the semis, I was deep, and I really only knew 2 cows I wanted to cut. And Roger Wagner showed, I think, maybe the horse before me, and Grant had just got done helping him, Setnica, and he knew of a black cow, and he's been helping me so long.
Yeah, he knows.
I did not know this cow.
Yeah.
And I knew a couple other ones, and he's like, hey, I know a really good black cow we need to cut. And I was like, all right. And I had one other one, and that I really liked, and then one other one. And he kind of put me on it. I just kind of walked up there like a youth kid and cut it, So I got to give those people a lot of credit. So.
Well, and then a 221.5 comes up on the scoreboard. So, I mean, that's got to give you some confidence. Two 220-plus runs that you've had now on this horse in three outs, across the timeline. And going into the finals that you've got something there that you can build on. So now we're going into the finals the next day. Did you do anything different that morning? How did he work?
Surprises? He worked good. I had to work him because he is kind of frisky, but he felt pretty strong. Like I worked him for a minute and got a great work on him, and my mentality was just to go get through a good run, because the way the Futurity payout is so strong now, and with the incentives that we have, you really need to land in that top 5, and you need to not take yourself out. It was kind of more my mentality and stuff like that. So, yeah. Yeah.
So obviously you go in there, you got to show a bit more aggressively and to try to mark that bigger score.
Yeah.
Now, did you ever were there any parts through that run where you thought, I might have gone too far here?
No, I in fact, talking about the aggressively part of it, probably the only thing I did aggressively was I chipped my first cow. And I worked it for a while, and it was good. It got really good.
Yeah.
It didn't start all that great, and then it ended up getting really good. I worked my second cow for what some people told me they wished I would have worked it longer.
Yeah.
And the reason I didn't was I had worked that first cow for a while, in my opinion, and that second cow was getting a little scary. And something that went through my mind was to be smart.
Yeah.
And I thought if I stayed in there a couple more turns, it was going to get close and hard to quit. And I quit it in a really good spot. And same deal. There was a gray cow in there that did not settle that great, that had just started acting really good. And I turned around and I had another cow in mind, and I kind of didn't see it. And Grant was like, hey, we should probably cut this gray cow. It just acted really good, and it just shaped up perfect, because when it's your time, it's your time.
It just falls into place.
It fell into place, and it worked. I mean, this is maybe one of the better cows I've cut in there, So, it was cool.
Well, and I think that's important what you mentioned there. It's you can't force this.
No.
You can't go out there and bully your way into that 227. There's some things that have got to fall into place. You've got to you've got to execute your part. You've got to think on your feet.
For sure.
And you've got to do what you need to do to create that run with what you have to play with.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. So then the score comes up 227. You've got the lead. What are you thinking then?
Oh, because I didn't really know what was going to pop up there, because I never really do, but I knew it was good, and I knew how I finished, and it was pretty loud in there, and I thought, that's never a bad sign.
Yeah.
It's only a bad time when you can hear the cook shack, and I couldn't hear the cook shack.
You couldn't hear Carter in the background.
I couldn't Carter wasn't the only person cheering, and I thought it's going to be good, and when that popped up, I've been wanting to win the Futurity since I was a kid, and it really made me want to train cutting horses, was the Futurity. And so, when that happened, it was pretty awesome, kind of emotional, honestly. So,
I can imagine. I mean, it's because it's a feeling you've never felt before.
Oh,
you've done something you've never done, and something that's always been on your bucket list. And then, it pays $337,000 to win that thing, plus the incentive from Valley Econ, which is another $138,000 change. So $485,000 and $730,000.
It was a nice Christmas.
And you've got, and the best part is you got a customer you just now met after years training, and so that's a great way to start off a relationship there. So then you go off and you go do this winner interview, and Carter steals the show right there. How about
He did, but that was great, because I don't need to say I don't really think anybody wants to listen to me talk, and so that was just awesome. What he said, and he's so sincere. He's like a 25-year-old in a 7-year-old body, and he'd been telling me all year. He's like, Dad, you're going to win the Futurity, and I was like, thanks. Thank you, Carter. I appreciate it. We got a long way to go, and he kept telling me all week. He's like, Dad, you're gonna win. Yeah. You're gonna win, and which is awesome. That these kids, they really. I'm glad he got to experience that when he's old enough to really appreciate it.
Yes.
Or seemingly.
Because he'll remember this.
Yeah, it's cool. It was really neat.
So have you started asking him how he feels about next year yet, or not?
No, sir. I'll tell you what. Yeah, I'm really grateful that it took me till I was 36 to win the Futurity, and I'm grateful it didn't happen to me at 26 or 21 or whatever, because I won the Super Stakes, I think, when I was like 26 or 27, and the Derby in the same year, and I have felt this a tremendous amount of pressure, and there was none, and I didn't enjoy it, and like I showed, we're in Abilene, I showed that gelding in the weekend part of it, and I just felt zero pressure. I'm just really happy to have this horse and have him at the point in my life where I can truly appreciate it, and not try to go duplicate success, or you know what I mean, not put all the weight on this one horse and stuff like that, of just I really need this horse to be good. He's great, and I'm happy that I feel like I'm mature enough to appreciate how awesome it is, and not just be like, well, we got to win another one.
Well, and I think it's taken you a while to win it, and you've won it a lot earlier than. There's guys out there been doing this a lot longer than you and I both have, but still haven't won it. But it's given you a real appreciation now. But it's also probably, it's made it realistic for you to like, hey, this isn't going to happen again necessarily next year or the year after. This may be it, or I know what it takes now, but there's still a lot of other factors that are going to come into play. And it's just a perfect storm.
Yeah, it was really cool. Yep.
Yeah. So what does this mean to your program now moving forward? You've checked that box now, and now we go into the next year. We've just started showing here. Does that give you more confidence and like you said, take a little bit of that pressure off you now?
Yeah. The pressure's always on. It's always on, right? Yeah. But I didn't feel any pressure to win the Futurity this year. It's just something I really wanted, and I wanted. If people that know me, they know how bad I wanted it, and I still want it that bad. That part of it hasn't changed. I would love to win it again, and that's the goal. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's the show we all shoot for. And I think any horse trainer, any cutting horse trainer, you should show the Futurity. It doesn't matter what your skill level or whatever. Heck yeah, and to get it's awesome. And there's people buying horses, and you look at the sales in our business, it's just unbelievable right now. And if you're not showing at the Futurity, you're really not that much of a part of it, and you should get involved. Go show.
Well, I think that's very well said, and it's very true. And like you said, it's not just about the fact showing at the Futurity trying to win it. It's the experience while you're there.
Oh yeah.
And hanging around the people that you normally may not. There's people that we see only at the Futurity every year.
Yeah.
And then we catch up with them, and then we won't see them again until the next Futurity. And it's like every time it's like catching up with them. And it's like we just saw them last week, but yet it was a year ago. But there's so much to learn there at that show, and there's so much going on, like you said. You've had just an amazing year, and I think that's what was cool about this, because the fall that you had, I don't know if anybody else has had a fall like that, but it was like they couldn't beat you on it, and you're winning on all these different horses. You've got a couple of trailers full of these horses that are going in and making finals and winning. You won over $1 million this year, which I think you're the fourth person to do that, so that's an extremely big accomplishment right there. You went over the 4 million mark, and then you win the Futurity, and just icing on the cake. And I think it's just an amazing story.
Yeah,
and
thanks.
It was so cool. And I think the other cool thing is that this horse, like they often do, these Futurity winners come in as not an underdog, but one that maybe wasn't on the top of the radar.
Yeah, I talked to Wesley Guy today, and he said, I'd never seen you work that horse ever, and because we all go to the same shows and stuff, and he said, I watched you the morning before the first round, work him on the flag, and he was telling his wife, he's like, man, I saw Kenny work a roan horse, and it's funny how you don't know, and that's the best part about the Futurity, is the not knowing, and that's the coolest part about it, in my opinion. Is anybody can win it. There's zero biased. We're all going in clean slate, and it's got a lot of mystery. It's kind of romantic.
Well, on that note, we're going to end this interview before this gets any weirder.
Yeah.
But no, hey, congratulations.
Yeah.
It's so fun to see you have the success there, and to finally, like I said, check that box. And man, I can't wait to watch you this year.
Yeah, I appreciate
and see. I know there's a lot of other people that are now scratching their heads, going, "What are we going to do with this guy?"
Yeah,
But it's great to see you on this run, and great to see you get that box checked. So,
yeah,
Kenny,
appreciate
congratulations.
It. Yep, enjoyed it.
Thank you.